Well, first up this hour on the program, that is, it is the first taste of wildfire season here in BC, as we've been hearing, but already well underway and causing major concern in the prairies. Manitoba and Saskatchewan have both declared a province-wide state of emergency. Thousands have been forced to flee their communities, with more than 20 fires burning in Manitoba alone. And in northern Saskatchewan, evacuations have been ordered for more than 10 communities. Ken McMullen is the president of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs and Fire Chief of Red Deer, Alberta, and that is where we reached him.
Well, good afternoon.
Thanks very much for joining us. I wanted to ask you about the latest, what we're seeing right now with the fires happening in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. What are you seeing and hearing about what's happening in Saskatchewan and Manitoba?
Yeah, thank you. And I unfortunately have to add Alberta to that, just seeing a couple of evacuation alerts and orders in our province here in Alberta in the last few hours. So just another province that is continuing to see some advancements of significant fires in their provinces. At the moment, we're seeing about 164 active fires all across Canada. And to put that in perspective, 26 of those are new within the last 24 hours. So we've got some volatility, to say the least. And there's not a province or territory at the moment, as I'm just looking at the screen here, that doesn't have some sort of fire activity, with the exception of Prince Edward Island. So we're all into this for something. What
do you make of seeing these fires at this time of year at the end of May?
Well, it's certainly concerning, and yet part of me is somewhat sad to admit that this was something we've talked about, and we probably used the word predictable. We saw major wildfires in 23. We saw them again in 24, and now, unfortunately, we are seeing a very early fire start with significant fires in 25. The days where we could say that they were unprecedented, unfortunately, the data just shows if it's 3 years in a row, it's not unpredictable or unprecedented anymore. We've got some work to be doing for sure.
Yeah. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew saying that Prime Minister Mark Carney has offered federal support. Manitoba has asked for help from the Canadian Armed Forces as well at this point. In your view, what's needed in Canada in order to be better prepared to fight wildfires?
Well, I know I begin to sound somewhat like a broken record, but the fact is we continue to need a national fire administration. We need a voice at the federal level to help with coordination, with training and equipment. We certainly have support from others, and we know groups like the Canadian Armed Forces do wonderful things when they are deployed, but they're not firefighters, and I think that that's often lost in conversation. And the former Minister of Defense in his parting months certainly indicated that he felt as though the use of Canadian Armed Forces in wildfire was not the best use, and that Canada needed to find alternative ways of supporting communities without the use of going to the Canadian Armed Forces first. And so that conversation needs to be re-engaged. We're hopeful that the new government under Mark Carney is going to lead those conversations and instill a national fire administrator in very, very short order.
You and I have talked about that, I think, almost every time we've been on the air together. One thing that you mentioned earlier in our conversation was preparedness. And just yesterday on our program, we spoke with the chief of the Revelstoke Fire Department, and we were there. They're having a fire preparedness week all week this week, and they're talking about fire smarting. And we were speaking about fire mitigation, and he was saying that in the community, outside the community, that they are fire mitigation is in its infancy, and they're just getting programs underway. And Revelstoke is a community right smack in the middle of a forest. And this is a conversation that's being had in communities right around the province. How do you think Canada is doing when it comes to mitigation in terms of getting rid of brush and trees and growth around communities in that interface area where the forest meets communities? How do you think we're doing in Canada? Where are we?
Well, it's a great question, and I'm going to just preface that I'm going to give you an opinion as a fire chief that works on the municipal side. And the reason I say that is because we certainly walk through our urban communities, and we walk through the areas within our community where we identify different fire risks. Many urban cities have different sorts of forested treed areas, and we get to walk through those and look at it from the risks within our own communities. I think nationally, the conversation is happening. It really had no choice but to happen with everything that's happened in the last two 2.5 years of wildfires. And so although it's being done, I know that it often comes with counter opinions. And there's a lot of wonderful things about the undergrowth in our communities. A lot of things. There's a lot of natural aspects of wildlife and birds, etc., that rely on that portions of our system to strive and survive. The unfortunate reality is, and I've said this many times, is that when the fire comes in, unfortunately, those other concerns are put to the side. When we're actively fighting fires, the moments before where we've talked about ensuring that we are protecting the livestock and the ecosystems, those aren't discussed. We go in, we actively do what we can to extinguish the fire, and so at times there's probably at odds of priorities, and it's not intentional. They're both very valid concerns, but it is one that Canadians have to continue to have the conversation about.
How are you feeling as we head into this wildfire season this year?
Well, I think like many fire chiefs, to name a few, we're very concerned. When we look at the fires that we're seeing in our country today, when we see the number of growths happening overnight, we've got no choice but to be concerned. And with what we're calling a lack of coordination across the country for resources, it's something that we need to keep at top of mind with our elected officials and with our communities.
Chief McMullen, thank you very much for making some time for us today. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, your listeners. All the best and stay safe.
That was Ken McMullen, the president of the Canadian Association of Fire Chiefs and Fire Chief of Red Deer, Alberta.